Hello, true believers, and welcome back to another edition of BK's Bullets. Today, I will be doing a review of Batman The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 and Part 2. So after last week's Batman vs. Robin, in which I really did not like that at all, I had to go with something that I knew would be good. You guys may have seen me on Brent's channel before talking about my love and obsession over Batman The Dark Knight Returns, the comic book written by Frank Miller. And that to me is the definitive Batman story for so many reasons. And if you don't believe my love for this, go back and look at any of the guest reviews. I will post a link in the description below to all of those guest reviews that I have done. I think I'm the only one that's done guest reviews on Brent's channel. Just look at the number of times and watch any of those, and I guarantee you I will talk at some point about Batman The Dark Knight Returns. I am that obsessed over it. It is such a phenomenally drawn and phenomenally told story of Batman, and I really, really, really love the first part of that book in which he has the calling to return to become the Batman. It is something that is just so masterclass that, I still to this day am in awe. So to watch the animated version of it was an absolute treat. I knew loosely the story, although I have to admit I did go back and have to glance through the book again. It is ridiculously faithful to the source material, and I think they did a really good job with it. There are a few differences, at least in my opinion, things that I kind of noticed as I was watching the film rather than the comic book. And I think this is one of those instances where the book is better. You hear that a lot, right? You watch a movie, you read the book, oh, the book's better. I think what made the book so good was just such a wild art style that is just really resonates with me today. That's something I would love to be able to draw the way that comic book actually comes together. But the sense of hopelessness and despair that Gotham really had before Batman returns to form, I feel like that was kind of overlooked in the movie. The movie felt much more, or the cartoon, whatever, it felt much more like things were more normal. Yes, there was this evil gang that was kind of running everything, but you didn't really see much in the way of terror. You got little snippets of news story, and that was really about it. I feel like in the book, the way it was drawn, things you don't see, your brain fills in the gaps, and your brain fills in, just how horrible this world was. I remember people just walking around like, oh my God, the world's ending, and how bad things were, doom and gloom. Jim Gordon couldn't get a hold of, the Gotham Police Department. This gang was running loose, and I feel like in the animated film, it wasn't that bad. Batman did absolutely come in and make a difference, but it was a much cheerier Gotham. It was a much happier Gotham, and I prefer the idea that the city was on the edge of, the brink, and it was this evil Gotham that Batman came out of a shell again to fight once again. I kind of feel like that's where the comic book really sets a much better tone than the movie. But the comic book does not have Peter Weller, and as much as I hated Batman vs. Robin last week because of the whiny, horribly drawn Batman in that cartoon, this Batman, he's as wide as he is tall, first of all. The guy just walks around like this. He's just a meat man, just a total unit. Peter Weller's voice just nails the tone of what Batman is to me. This just gruff, not taking nonsense, very, very dry, very just straightforward kind of superhero. And really, you see his personality really unchanged, really, even when Robin comes along. And I think Peter Weller is one of those few actors who just nails this part and remains completely one tone through the entire film. There's a lot of times when Batman clearly having a rough time, Robin bails him out a lot, and I think she is a very good compliment to him. The amount of times he turns to her and he's like, "Don't do this, or you're fired." He says it like 5 times in the movie. Just the way he says it, it's just so dry. But there's still a level of respect underneath all of that. And I feel like that is missing somewhat from the comic book. Clearly, Batman takes Robin under his wing. Clearly, Batman wants to sort of train her, although I think it's pretty clear that she'll never be the fighter he is. But he still brings her along on missions. He still asks her to do things to try to help him navigate through this crazy world. But you never get that sense of mutual trust or respect almost, I feel like, in the book, where in the movie, definitely the way Peter Weller delivers those lines, he does really care for Robin. He does really see her as, I wouldn't say an equal, but he knows that he needs her to complete his missions. And I really like that. And I feel like that was really missing from the book. A lot of the other stuff really beat for beat, the whole Two-Face saga at the beginning and then transitioning later on into the Joker, I thought was phenomenally well done. I think the animation in this book and the art style, while not as crazy as what we saw in the comic, is very different than what we've seen from other Batman movies that I've watched so far. And it's going to be hard for me to kind of top this because just for me, it's just such a special book. But, to be objective about it, they did a good job. I think it probably, I feel like in some of the fight sequences, in particular when he's fighting the mutant leader, clearly he is, savage in that fight. And he's sending a message, breaking bones, breaking faces, breaking teeth. I feel like the art style did a better job of showing some of that raw violence. I get this. This is a cartoon, probably branded more for teenagers. There's definitely, a serious tone to what's going on. But I think that fight in particular really sticks out because I felt like it was much more violent and visceral in the book as opposed to the film. But outside of that, really, it was, skimming through the book, I did have to dust off the old Comixology username and password. I'm just skimming through, the Wikipedia article here to make sure I didn't miss any points. But it was very, very faithful. And I, going back and skimming through, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I particularly enjoyed some of the great animation that was done with Superman, although I feel like his arc was a little rushed. Definitely, I felt this kind of in the book too. It almost felt kind of like Attack On, honestly. But I wanted to see the buildup between Batman and Robin, or Batman, not Batman versus Robin. Don't worry about that. Batman versus Superman. I wanted to see that built up a little more. I wanted that fight to feel more impactful. And I feel like it kind of missed the mark here. I feel kind of like in this fight here, it was more, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but like it just didn't have that significance. So I guess maybe those are the two instances where I felt like the book kind of, shined through. Definitely, I can't not talk about the soundtrack in this. It was phenomenal. I would say when I first started this journey across the DC films for Brent, I did start watching Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Unbeknownst, it was kind of like the beginning of everything. Just dumb luck, I clicked on it. And in that review, I spoke very highly of the soundtrack. And I said, I can close my eyes and I can hear that opening theme still of how beautiful that sound was and how unique that soundtrack was, and something that, I want to own and play again and again. I felt that way about this soundtrack too. It was very, very well done. Much more so vibrant in part to the story than I feel like I've seen in some of the other animated films. Like the Wonder Woman soundtrack to me was very forgettable. Batman vs. Robin, I feel like was very forgettable. Even the Green Lantern didn't really seem like something I could remember. But this one, there's just songs that I was like, oh, I can think of and hear the music playing during certain parts of of the Batman cartoon, and I liked it for that. I thought that was really, really good. Looking at the overall numbers here, it did incredibly well. Between part one and part two, it earned close to a little about 10.5 million in domestic sales, and it was nominated for best sound editing, and it just seems to have really gotten very high praise. Lots of upper eights, nines, tens, and I think that's rightfully deserved. I still stand by. This is the definitive Batman story in comic form. I will be hard pressed to ever find an animated film that made me feel as proud to be a Batman fan, to root for this guy as this movie does. And I owe a lot of it to, I think, really just all coming together with phenomenal sound, phenomenal art direction. And honestly, I gotta say, man, Peter Weller, I think he killed it. I really feel like any other voice actor could not have pulled this performance off the way that he did. And it's a shame, as far as I can tell in brief chats with Brent, I don't believe Peter Weller is in other films. If he is, it's a wonderful surprise when I stumble across him. I don't know what'll be next for me next week, but I am definitely getting that bad taste out of my mouth with this film. You guys owe it to yourselves, and you owe it to Batman to read this comic and then to go and watch this film, or in inverse order. I think you'll find a lot of phenomenal moments out of both of them. So with that, I will be closing down this video. I hope you guys found it interesting and informative. Do yourselves a favor and subscribe to this channel. Brent's been doing lots of wonderful content. He's doing weekly updates on WandaVision as soon as they come out. He's been doing a lot of deep dives on some of the comic books he's been getting. So throw him some love, and thank you guys so much. And until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.